anyone wants to shout a guess, you can win a prize. It's a very poor Titan. Okay, cool. Nix.
Triton.
Oh, did you say Titan or Triton?
Poker moon.
Titan. Oh, near enough though. Who was that? Who said Titan? Well done. There you go, there you go. This, last one, and then we have to start the show apparently. Hello everyone, welcome to the Free Fringe! More specifically, welcome to Andy's Moon Show, How Much is the Moon Worth? I am not Andy, I am Rick. I am Andy's co-host. Andy is far too important to do his own crowd work to get everyone warmed up, obviously. What's going to happen tonight is we're going to talk about how much is the moon worth, because we are on an even day tomorrow and yesterday, and odd days we have a different show, How to Fake the Moon Landing. So give us a cheer if you saw our show, How to Fake the Moon Landing. Hey, you're back, thank you. That's how good it is, folks. So give us a cheer if you didn't see it. You sound happier. Not a good sign, but you can say that they loved it. So this time tomorrow, How to Fake the Moon Landing. It's the last one off the Fringe, then we've got to go back to Enceladus. So, ladies and gentlemen, are you warmed up? Yeah! No, that's right. Let's try again. Are you warmed up? Yes! Fantastic. Ladies and gentlemen, I can't tell you how much is the moon worth. I am not clever enough. Thankfully, we have a moon expert here. Please give it up for Andy Roberts!
Hello and welcome to How Much is the Moon Worth? I am Andy, a self-appointed moon expert, and with me is Rick, a self-appointed everyman. He'll be like the crowd representative tonight, so he'll kind of keep me on track. I tend to gabble a bit, talk a bit fast, so if at any point I say anything too sciencey, he'll go, "What does that mean, Andy?" Or something like that as well.
Got any questions? Just catch my eye. In fact, just shout them out. We're not a show that picks on people.
No. It's the other way around. You can pick on us.
Yeah. Pick on Andy. That's great. I will support you. But yeah, I'll catch your eye. If you've got any questions, just put your hand up and or shout them out. And there's prizes.
Yes. So, I'm here tonight to talk to you about how much is the moon worth. But I know what you're thinking. What makes this guy, who can't work a clicker, a moon expert? Well, here are my credentials. I went to the University of Manchester, studied physics for a few years and got a master's in physics. I then left, got a soul-destroying desk job and started making YouTube videos about the moon as a creative outlet, out of which I was able to name 2 moons of Jupiter, Euphemy and Philophrosony. And if you go to Wikipedia, because no one can edit Wikipedia, it's set in stone, and you look up that moon, it'll have I'm a Lunatic. And that is my YouTube channel, my handle, and my credit of naming these 2 moons of Jupiter. It was because the Carnegie Institute for Science discovered 12 new moons of Jupiter and said, we might let the public name 5 of them. So I made the video explaining how you would name them, and they let me name 2 of them, and the other 3 were named by children or astronomy clubs full of children. So I did enter a competition for children, but I still won, so it doesn't matter. So that's one of my credentials, and the other final credential I have is I'm BBC Radio 1's Sean Moondes. If you listen to The Breakfast Show with Greg James and they have a question about space, they usually give me a call because Brian Cox isn't around half the time. So they'll give me a call to go on The Breakfast Show and answer all sorts of questions about space. So those are my credentials and why I'm here tonight to talk to you about how much is the moon worth. Now, there's various different ways we can value the moon and we can figure out how much it's worth. We're going to take 3 approaches, one of which is theoretical as a resource, then legally ambiguous, real estate, and then actual honest-to-God exchanging moon for money. So first things first, because we're going to get the ball rolling quickly. The moon as a resource. What is the moon made of? Cheese. It is made of cheese. The correct answer is rock, but we're going to start with the fun one first. Cheese. The moon is made of cheese. But what kind of cheese? Green. Brie? Green cheese? Yes, of course, green cheese. Any other types of cheese? Yes, good shout. Any other cheese that the moon might be made out of?
Double Gloucester.
Yeah, let's go with double Gloucester. Well, depending on what kind of cheese it is, will determine how much it's worth, because different cheeses have different values. So here is my cheese index. If we converted the entire weight of the moon to cheese and then sold it off, what would it be? Here at the pleb end with cheddar, we have 36 septillion pounds. And septillion is a million. And then here at the luxury end, we have parmesan, which is what the moon might be made of because it's a bit hard and rocky. So it'd be 180 septillion pounds. But of course, if we were to convert all the whole moon into cheese and bring it back down to Earth, it would completely crash the dairy economy. So all of these numbers would be out of the window. Now, we all know that if it were made of cheese, it would be Wensleydale, thanks to these spacefaring pioneers. But I do have some bad news for you. This is fake moon landing footage. I know, I'm just as shocked as you are, but this is fake moon landing footage, and you can tell because if this was actually filmed on the moon, they'd be illuminated by a single source of light, right? So the shadows would be parallel, which they're not. Also, because of the parallax and the position of the moon and the Earth in the sky, the stars appear slightly differently. So that's not how Cassiopeia would appear in the night sky if he were on the moon. And if you look carefully, this man is made of plasticine. So I'm pretty convinced this is fake moon landing footage. So what is the moon actually made of? We've got a really, really good idea thanks to the Apollo samples that were brought back, but also thanks to spectroscopy analysis and all kinds of things like that. I'm not going to bore you with all of these. The three we're going to look at tonight are water, helium-3, and the lunar regolith, the lunar soil. So first things first, water on the moon. Yes?
Is there any?
Yes.
Because I've heard the Sea of Tranquility is not a sea.
That's true. It is just a...
There's no water on the moon.
The Sea of Tranquility about here, it is all kind of like barren wasteland. There's no big oceans of water on the moon. There is lots of moisture and water on the moon, though. So if you go into a garden and you just get a handful of soil, it's kind of wet, isn't it? And that's because there is moisture trapped beneath or between the soil particles. So that's what's happening on the moon. There is water within these particles. But also, at the North Pole and the South Pole, in the craters, there's lots of ice. So, Carol Vorderman here is going to hold my moon, and I am going to pretend to be sun rays coming in here. Now, if there is a crater here, then my sun rays will illuminate all sides of the crater. So any ice that was put there, thanks to like a comet impact, would melt over time. But if it's at the top and at the bottom, then the sun rays will just go completely over the top of the crater and not illuminate the basins. So any ice that was in there will be permanently frozen forever because it never gets above melting temperature because there's no sunlight. So you can get water on the moon in the craters at the North and South Poles and also in the lunar soil. Thank you, Carol. So, water on the moon is a very valuable resource, but not for drinking, not for filling a swimming pool. In fact, it is for its core components, hydrogen and oxygen. Now, anyone know what we can use hydrogen and oxygen for?
Fuel.
Fuel! Yes, exactly. We can use it for rocket fuel. Could use it for breathing, but, you know, us capitalists will go, no, fuel. We could definitely sell that. That's much better. So
Quick one, sorry, you answered that correctly. Did you win one of those?
Yeah.
Brilliant, right, you can't have it. Any young people there? You're young.
We've got 2 more shows, Rick.
Carry on.
We need to keep hold of the moons. They're expensive. So this, we'll find out later. So this tiny rocket requires an incredible amount of fuel, and that is because it has to escape the Earth's gravitational pull. You need a tremendous amount of thrust to overcome the Earth's gravity to get into space. The heavier an object is, and the more fuel you need, and the more fuel you need, you're adding more weight onto the rocket, therefore making it heavier. Yes.
Put that in a cartoon or we, the audience, will not understand.
Okay. Here is our rocket. We can calculate how much fuel we need to get it into space. We need this much fuel. Cool, whack it in the rocket. But oh no, we have changed the mass of the rocket. It's now heavier because it's got fuel in it. Okay, well, just add some more fuel to the rocket, but you've made it heavier again. And you go through this cycle over and over again until you get to a point where you have enough fuel in your rocket to get both the rocket and the fuel off the ground. The problem is it's a lot. To escape the Earth's gravitational pull and get to the moon, you need 35 times the mass of the rocket. So for every 100 kilograms of rocket, you need 3,500 kilograms of fuel. To get to Mars, you need 84 times the mass of the rocket. And considering that humanity is planning on going to Mars sometime soon, there's going to be a bit of a fuel problem. Now, what you could do is you could go to the moon, and you could refuel there with the hydrogen and the oxygen and go to Mars. And it would only cost you 8 times the mass of the rocket in fuel. So even going from Earth to the moon, refueling and then to Mars is significantly far more fuel efficient than going from the Earth to Mars. Yes?
As the audience rep, I'd like to point out, yeah, that's great. You're using the moon as this sort of celestial service station.
Yes.
But there's no fuel on it. How do you make the fuel?
Well, exactly.
And can you get that much?
So, for every 2,500 metric tons of lunar water, we can apply something to this called electrolysis. It splits molecules into its core components, so we can get water and split it out into hydrogen and to oxygen. So for every 2,000 metric tons of lunar water, we can get 500 metric tons of lunar fuel. 20% of all the water on the moon will be converted to fuel. So this is how much you can get per 2,500 tons of lunar water, 2 billion pounds. This is how much lunar water is on the moon, and in rehearsals I kept screwing up these numbers, so there's this many, and you get this much money out of 2 billion pounds per block of 2,500, 480 trillion pounds. That is a staggering amount of money, almost unfathomable. So thanks to a Hank Green video of converting it into relatable things, let's break this down in units of the most valuable man on Earth, which apparently is Elon Musk, when I Googled it this morning. I know, I'm not a fan of him either, but he is the richest person on Earth, 175 billion pounds. 480 trillion is 2,500 Elon Musks. So if you get the Royal Albert Hall, and half the capacity of the Royal Albert Hall is 480 trillion if they're all Elon Musks. And that's including, you know, if they were promised and just queued up on the door the day. 480 trillion worth is half a Royal Albert Hall in Elon Musk's. But there's a problem with the fuel thing. I mentioned electrolysis before, right? That requires a hell of a lot of electricity. We need a power source on the moon, which brings me to my next resource, helium-3. Does anybody know what we can use helium-3 for?
Helium-2.
I think I heard fusion, which is the correct answer, but a load of other good ideas as well.
Beating helium-2.
Yeah. It would be helium-2. So a quick crash course on what helium-3 is and what fusion is. This is our normal helium isotopes that we can get in the atmosphere. We put it in balloons, it's fairly common. Helium-3 is an isotope of helium-4. It's got the same number of protons, but one less neutron. That's what an isotope is. So you can get isotopes of many, many different elements. Now, we can smush helium-3 with a deuterium isotope, which is an isotope of hydrogen. You smush them together in nuclear fusion, and out pops a hydrogen, a helium, and a hell of a lot of energy, 18.4 MeV. MeV stands for mega electron volts. No one here really deals with mega electron volts, so we'll convert that into a nice, easy to understand thing, which is 220 metric tons of helium-3 can supply the entire Earth's energy needs for a year.
Are you missing a million?
No, 220 metric tons.
So if I look at a car park,
Yeah.
and I see about 200 cars,
Yeah.
or 220 cars,
220 cars.
each one is about a ton,
About?
that's all I need.
Yeah, exactly. So it might seem heavy, but when you compare it to coal, you need 24 billion metric tons to get the same amount of energy.
Well, why aren't we using it then?
Coal?
We're using that's rubbish.
bad.
Yeah. Why don't we use helium-3?
We don't use helium-3 because it's incredibly rare. It's very hard to get here on Earth. There are 3 ways we can get helium-3. One is within the mantle. Helium-3 is a primordial nuclide. That means it was around before the Earth existed. So it came from the same interstellar cloud of gas and dust that the whole solar system was formed in. So it's deep within the Earth's core. Then the other 2 ways we can get it from are cosmic rays and solar wind, from the stars basically, but it's incredibly rare for it to get here on Earth because space is big. So getting it from the mantle, bit of a challenge. We need to drill a hole that's 70 kilometers deep. The furthest humans have ever dug is 12 kilometers. So we're only 20% of the way there. But good news, there is a way for the mantle to come to the surface. Anyone know how that might happen? Volcanoes! Exactly. And studies have found... Brilliant. So, studies have found that a whopping 300 grams of helium-3 are emitted from volcanoes per year.
Have you missed a million off?
No, I haven't missed a million off it. So, bit of a problem here. It's a bit less than the 220 metric tons of helium-3 we need. And also, we can't really collect it from a volcano because we'd have to stand there with a big net by the side of a volcano just waiting to gather it. And volcanoes are hot and dangerous. So, this option's kind of out. What we could do is get it from the sky, from the cosmic rays and solar winds, right? But the Earth is surrounded by a magnetic field, so it deflects a lot of the helium-3. Some of it will get through, and it'll get stopped by the atmosphere. Some of that will get through the atmosphere, but fall into the ocean, because the Earth is 2/3 ocean, and out of the land, 1/3 of that is desert. So, and also, we can't go around with a big net trying to collect all the helium-3 that's falling from the sky. Basically, it's very, very hard to get it here on Earth. But you know what doesn't have a magnetic field, atmosphere, or oceans? Correct! It is indeed the moon. We're going to run out of moons. The moon has none of these, and which is brilliant. So because it has no atmosphere, no magnetic field, and no oceans, the first meter of the lunar surface has 1 million metric tons worth of lunar fuel. So we could go there and mine it and solve our energy crisis.
And we only needed 220 tons.
Yes, and these people, this paper did a wonderful job of calculating all the results for me. And they found that all the helium-3 on the moon could power the world for 5,000 years. And that's taking into account the global population increasing over time. So 5,000 years, we don't need to worry about electricity. All of our things are solved. If you think about it, we've only needed electricity for the last 150 years or something like that. So if we had our electricity needs solved forever, we could use that brain power to solve cancer, to find out interstellar travel, to figure out what the next smartphone will be. We could solve so much with this. Now, it's worth pointing out that these countries are all researching nuclear fusion. They are on the cusp of breaking even. The USA has recently broken even for 4 nanoseconds. So we're not exactly at contracting EDF to pump out nuclear fusion watts just yet, but there is a significant overlap of the countries researching nuclear fusion and those planning on going to the moon. So even Brazil, China, Russia, the EU, they're all planning on going to the moon. They're looking for the best place to land a rover and the best place to mine helium-3 on the moon. Now that paper I pointed out before, they put a price tag on the helium-3 and it is worth 2.84 billion per ton. And I said before there's 1 million metric tons on the moon, so that means there is 2.84 quadrillion pounds worth of helium-3 on the moon, just waiting to be collected. Now, I don't own this much money. I don't think you have nearly 3 quadrillion.
I don't know. I'm just down to my last one.
Oh, okay. So this is, again, not a very relatable number, so we'll break it down in terms of Elon Musk's. And 16,000 Elon Musk's is not 1, but 2 military tattoos. So if you had 2 military tattoos, all populated with Elon Musk's, that is 2.84 quadrillion pounds. Now, I was just talking about a power plant and splitting water. There's no infrastructure on the moon to do this. It is just a barren wasteland. So we would actually need to build a power plant. We'd need to build launch pads. We'd need to build all sorts of stuff on the moon. And that requires concrete. An awful lot of concrete. Now, we can use, this is concrete on Earth, this simple formula. It is sand, aggregate, water, and cement. That makes concrete. Lunarcrete, we use the lunar soil, the regolith, water, and cement. And from this, we can get lunarcrete, which is an honest-to-God substance. The European Space Agency simulated the lunar soil, and they created lunarcrete. And it has the same tensile strength, the same radiation protection as normal concrete, which is absolutely incredible. So we could use the lunar surface as building materials. Now, I pointed out this formula before, where lunar soil, loads of that on the moon. Water, we know there is water on the moon. There is even cement on the moon, kind of.
In bags?
Not in bags.
Just ready.
No, there isn't.
They've not had my builders in. No. They left loads of cement.
It's not like B&Q where you have the builder's yard. over to one side.
So what do you mean there's cement?
So the white parts of the moon are made of a substance called a northite. It looks like this. This is in the lunar highlands. And the white material is calcium rich, so we can extract that calcium, treat it a little, and make cement on the moon. Now, going back to this, say like we can get cement on the moon, we can get soil on the moon, but all of our water is getting split into hydrogen and oxygen. As humans, what can we make naturally, without any effort, that's like a liquid? Yeah, you kind of see where this is going, and yes, they've done this in the University of Oslo. It's called Pcrete, and it has exactly the same tensile strength and radiation protection as normal concrete. It looks absolutely disgusting, so I'm going to go back to Lunarcrete. That's much nicer to look at. But yes, there's all sorts of things you can use the lunar surface for, or astronaut waste for, and you can use it as building materials. Now, you mentioned before bags of cement, right? The average bag of cement is £6 from B&Q, or a princely saving of 24p per kilo. Now, if I were to go and drive to my nearest B&Q from CC Bloom's, assuming it was late at night, because it can take up to 45 minutes, it would cost me about £1 in fuel, especially with today's fuel prices. If I were to post a bag of cement from my home in Gloucester all the way up to Scotland, it would cost £8. Posting it to France would cost £20, and to my cousin in Australia, almost £250. Although at that point, they should buy their own cement, as opposed to me shipping it to them at £250 a bag. The point I'm trying to make is it's expensive to send heavy items around. And I mentioned before, sending stuff into space is very expensive. And this is a new slide I added in just this week. Walking down Princess Street, there's a rocket company, and I looked on their website, and for a whopping £23,000 per kilo, you can ship stuff into space. This rocket company's by the big boots on Princess Street. They're called Skyroarer, and they're going to start actually delivering satellites into space.
It's a very niche high street shop.
I thought this as well.
I thought the fudge was expensive.
I was perplexed by this because Topshop closed down, and then Skyroarer thought, we've got a market here. Great, we can definitely, we'll corner this market. But don't just go for the first option you see, because that's really expensive, okay? No, it is really expensive. Look, here is a spreadsheet of the companies that send stuff into space and how much they charge per kilogram. So some will do it at $2,500. Your satellite might not get up into space in one piece, but they do cheap delivery. This all averages out at £8,500 per kilogram to send something into space. So my £6 bag of cement suddenly becomes £216,000 per bag. So it's significantly cheaper to use the lunar surface as building materials than take the heavy items up into space because of the fuel costs. Now, the Portland Cement Association did some wonderful number crunching for me, and they found that the average lunar base needs just over 12,000 tonnes of concrete. This would require 1,500 tonnes of cement and almost 500 tonnes of water. So if we're just using the lunar soil, we would actually save a whopping £13 billion per lunar base in just using the cement. So we're not actually making money, we're saving money. I feel like such a dirty salesman saying this. And if we were to make lots of lunar bases and power plants, let's say 100, that would be 1.3 trillion pounds that we're saving from just the lunar soil alone. Now, I was talking about Elon Musk before and how, let's use a nice relatable thing. 1.3 trillion is 7 Elon Musks. What do you think I've used as a group of 7? BTS, that's a good shout. Blake 7, that is a fantastic shout as well. That's nice and space themed as well. Any other shouts for what I've done? Dwarfs, that is another good shout. Other nights we've had 7 deadly sins. Sorry?
I was going to say deadly sins.
Oh, good shout. But no, I've gone for S Club 7 made of Elon Musk's. So that is how much you would be making if you were to convert all of the...
Can we go back to the Pcrete slide,
Yeah,
please? Less disturbing.
So, in summary, if we convert all the water into fuel, we get just under 500 trillion pounds. If we use all the helium-3 at something whopping per tonne, we get almost 3 quadrillion pounds from the moon. And for a 100 lunar base, there will be more lunar bases, but let's just say 100 for now. We get 1.3 trillion pounds worth, although both of the top and bottom figures are completely trumped by this quadrillion. So it will always be quadrillion from this point on. So in total, we're looking at 3.3 quadrillion pounds worth. Yes?
You've had a lot of maths, Andy.
Yes.
Our brains hurt. We want a treat. Yeah,
Yes.
Thank you. You preempted it.
I did. So the audio doesn't work at the moment, so you're going to hear, it's meant to be deliberately naff intro for this game, and it's going to come out of laptop speakers, so it's going to be even more naff. But I've created a game for you all, introducing... It's just as naff as I thought. Crater or Potato? So, this is everyone's favourite game, yes.
The one on the left is a crater, and the one on the right is a potato.
Well, it's going to be a little bit more trickier than that. What I am going to do is I'm going to show you the name of either a crater or a potato, and I want you guys to tell me if it is a crater or a potato. I feel like I should be having a sparkly blazer while doing this.
Shout it out as well.
So,
We're not going round individually.
Vivaldi! So are we thinking crater or potato? Okay, give us a cheer if you think it's crater. Woo! Crater if you think it's potato. Woo! The majority says potato. It is in fact a potato. This is one of the Netherlands' biggest exports of potatoes, according to Wikipedia, and also it is lower in calories and carbohydrates than many other popular potatoes. So look out for Vivaldi if you want some diet potatoes. On to the next one. Dove. Is this a crater or a potato? Potato. There are two options here. Give us a cheer if you think it's crater. And then give us a cheer if you think it's potato. All right, so you're thinking crater, and you're right! It is indeed a crater, the Dove crater. It's only 30 kilometers across, and it is on the southern half of the moon, right near the Tycho crater. So this is a very old crater, because you can see that other smaller craters have gone on top of it. This is how you actually date surfaces. No, I'm going off on a tangent. We'll talk about crater counting later, because it's very interesting. The last one of crater or potato. EH925271. Okay, give us a cheer if you think it's potato. Give us a cheer if you think it's crater. Oh, in the favour of potato again. You're correct. It is a potato. This is a genetically modified potato. It goes by the name as Amphora, and for the love of God, don't eat this potato because it is used for starch production only. So don't eat this potato. Only use it to stiffen your collars. So that was crater or potato. Hooray! Back to the science. Aww.
It gets less scientific though, I think.
Yeah, like we front-loaded the first half of the show with lots of science. Give you guys a break with crater or potato, and the second half is a lot more kind of like frivolous, legally stuff with a lot more anecdotes, so to speak. So we looked at the moon as a resource, but we've never been to the moon to mine it. We've been to the moon as a scientific experiment, brought back some lunar samples, but we've never mined it. We've never mined it for helium-3 or anything like that. So this is all theoretical. It could be 3.3 quadrillion. Until we actually do it, we don't know. So let's look at some legally ambiguous moon sales, and that is in the term of lunar real estate. Now, give me a quick cheer if anyone here has been bought an acre on the moon. Or bought yourself an acre on the moon. No, that's okay. I have. I was bought this acre of the moon for my 15th birthday from a well-meaning aunt who I recently found out doesn't believe the moon landings happened. So this is a bit of a mixed bag of a gift. But she was a well-meaning auntie, didn't really know what to get me, she just knew I liked space. It's kind of like as a child when you say, I like giraffes. And then for every gift-giving occasion, you're given something giraffe-related, like a giraffe t-shirt or a giraffe notebook. And then by the time you're 20, you're living in a giraffe shrine of just all this well-meaning gifts that are giraffe-related. But I was given an acre of the moon. And in this little tin, there is a map which shows where my acre is. X marks the spot. So zooming in, Here is my acre right next. It's got a great view of the Kepler crater and the Copernicus crater. It's in a nice, fairly high bit of the moon as well, in the lunar highlands. So it's a good acre. Thanks to the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter, I could get a satellite image of the surface. The Lunar Reconnaissance maps the whole surface of the moon. So this is my acre, and doing a CSI Miami-like enhance, you can see it is the dullest acre on the moon. There is nothing here whatsoever. I think there's like one sensible sized crater. The rest are just little potholes, but this is the dullest acre on the moon. But do I own this? Is this my acre? No, I don't own this. Ah. In fact, this is where it gets even worse. Not only do I not own this acre, my auntie and every National Trust gift shop that probably stocks these has been scammed by this man. Boo, boo indeed. Boo the man. This is Dennis Hope, the self-proclaimed president of the galactic government. He calls himself, and there's a constitution in here, and he refers to himself as the big cheese. Ugh, I know.
Dennis No Hope.
Yes! Oh, give that man a moon. Well done. So Mr. Dennis No Hope here claims the whole moon as his own and then sold it off acre by acre. But I know what you're thinking. What makes this chronically American-looking man feel like he can claim the moon as his own? Well, he says he's found a loophole in the Outer Space Treaty. And this treaty states, no nation by appropriation shall have sovereignty or control over any satellite body. That means humanity cannot claim another planet as their own. It's for the province of all humanity. He claims to have found a loophole in that it doesn't apply to individuals. It only applies to governments. But as Tanja Mason-Zwan, president of the International Space Law in the Netherlands, has stated time and time again, of course it does apply to private citizens because governments sign things on your behalf. Sometimes you don't agree with what they're doing, but that's the whole point of a government. They represent the people, most of the time, and they will sign things on your behalf. So, interpreting the law how he chose and exploiting this loophole, Dennis Hope created the Lunar Embassy, where he then sold and licensed the idea to sell acres on the moon. Now, this website has a history section where it explains how this claim went down, and you can tell that he wrote it himself. In 1980, a very bright, young, handsome Mr. Dennis Hope went into his local office in San Francisco and claimed the entire lunar surface. Obviously, he was taken as a crackpot. Obviously! Until 3 supervisors, 2 floors, and 5 hours later, the main supervisor accepted his claim of ownership. This reads to me as, oh my God, Dennis, get out of my office. Do you want the moon? Fine, have the moon. Go. So then Dennis toddled off to his desk and wrote letters to the General Assembly of the UN, the Russian government, and the US government, saying, hey guys, I'm going to sell properties on the moon and on Mars. They didn't reply to him. I wonder why. So he then said, oh, by the way, he didn't do a capital W there, I've just noticed. Oh, this is... I'm going to get a refund on this because of that.
Con man.
Illiterate con man.
So, yeah. So,
No more moons.
so they never did get back to him because, of course, they didn't. Because they're like trying to solve crises and wars and poverty and all sorts of other things. They can't return letters to every crackpot. So because they didn't reply to him saying, don't do that, he then went, great, I can go ahead and do that. That's not how this works. If I wrote to the BBC and said, you know what, Brian Cox is great and all, but it's my turn. I want his job. Fire Brian Cox, and I'll take over, and I'll do the travel shows and point at volcanoes and go, they have those on Io. I want to do that. So fire him, hire me. If I don't hear back from you within a year, I'm going to assume you're going to give me the job. Okay, love you, bye. That's not how it works. But anyway, if Dennis Hope doesn't own the moon, who does? I know that there's a lot of legalese with the treaty, but in summary, no one does. It's very much like Antarctica. The 1967 Outer Space Treaty says it's for the province of all humanity. We are meant to use it as like a nature reserve, very much like Antarctica. But the problem is This treaty is only 2,000 words, which is not great because it doesn't cover anything about mining rights, and it doesn't cover anything about pollution, which is a big part of mining. So at the moment, companies can go up and mine anything and not worry about the consequences of their actions. Thankfully, some things are getting put into place. This is an act that was pushed by the US Congress recently, the US Commercial Space Launch Competitiveness Act. Yes, I said the word. I kept tripping over it. Yes, thank you. This basically says finders keepers. If an American company goes up to the moon or an asteroid, mines it, whatever resources they have are theirs to keep. That's for American companies. There's similar laws being passed in a Luxembourg court for the whole of Europe, and there's going to be other ones in Austria soon. This act in particular does say the right does not extend to extraterrestrial life, so anything that's alive may not be exploited commercially. So this means alien slavery is not okay, according to this act. America is learning from its past, which is great. So, lunar real estate. How much is the moon worth as real estate? Well, the only metric that we've got to go off is 20 quid from the National Trust gift shop. That's how much an acre of the moon is worth. There's 9.3 billion acres on the moon. For comparison, this is 9.3 billion acres, the moon's surface flattened out. That's a map of Africa over it. So it's about Africa is 80% of the lunar surface at 7.5 billion acres. So, doing some quick maths, that comes in at 186 billion pounds. Now that is just over one Elon Musk. So let's try to break this down.
Can you break an Elon Musk into a...
like a £20 note?
Yeah, you know.
Excuse me, mate, can you break an Elon?
Yeah, break an Elon.
We'll do it in terms of queens. So the Queen is worth £385 million. And in 186 billion, there is 500 queens. So a collection of 500 is roughly the pleb class on an Airbus A380. So you've got different tiers. You've got the posh class, you've got the business class, and then you've got the pleb class for the people who just want to, like students who want to backpack and need to get to the other side of the world. This is the class for them. If you fill all 500 seats with the Queen, that's what 186 billion pounds is. So that's how much the moon is worth as real estate. So we're going to end tonight on how much is the moon worth as tangible value, exchanging moon for money, some real, honest-to-God exchange of moon memorabilia. Now, there's two types of moon memorabilia. One is lunar meteorite. This is stuff that has come from the moon, gone through space, and landed here on Earth. Very much like a meteorite will be from an asteroid, there's actual lunar meteorites that come from the moon. They're rare, and so they're worth quite a bit of money. The other type of moon memorabilia is the stuff that is brought back by humans, or robots that have gone to the moon. So China, Russia, and America have all brought samples back, and they've all been sold recently, some for very, very big sums of money. So we're going to look at how much each of those are worth. A super quick crash course on lunar meteorites. Something hits the moon, because there's loads of craters, so a big comet or asteroid smacks into the moon. It kicks up loads of dust and debris. Most of that will fall back onto the surface. Some of that will escape the moon's gravitational pull and go into space. Some of that will float around the sun, and some of that will eventually land here on Earth. And people can package it up and sell it. Very much like this. This is a lunar meteorite that was gifted to me by a colleague who actually believes that the moon landing happened, so I'm a lot happier with this one. This is my lunar meteorite. It comes from NWA 7986. NWA stands for Northwest Africa, because that's where the meteorite was found, in the Sahara Desert. So this is my lunar meteorite, and there's only 7 milligrams worth, and it was bought for £20. So doing some quick maths, that comes out at £2,800 per gram. For comparison, cocaine is about 80 quid per gram. During the Fringe, I think it goes up to 100 quid a gram, but, you know, temporary inflation. So
is that a proper meteorite? It's not Dennis Hope, you're not, not been conned?
This is a genuine meteorite, and I'm not sure if you can see like a sticker on the back, but that's their official seal. So anyone could have done that. Anyone could have gone to a car park and just chiseled some gravel up and just stuck it in one of this. But no, this is a genuine one because it's magnetic, and if you put it under a microscope, the way that the crystallines are, it has to have come from the moon in the form of the meteorite, actually.
So the National Trust gift shop has a Dennis Hope Acre of the Moon and one of those.
Yes, pick this one. I know this is bigger, but this one's legit. So that is my moon rock, and it is worth 20 quid or this little bit was bought for 20 quid, or it's about £3,000 per gram. However, not all lunar meteorites are that expensive. This one, for example, this is the biggest lunar meteorite ever sold at auction for £2 million. So doing some quick maths, that works out at £150 per gram. So we'll take an average at £1,500 per gram. On the Earth, we have, that we know of, 780 kilograms worth of lunar meteorite. There is going to be more out there, we just haven't found it. Lunar meteorites are incredibly hard to find, and as I said before, the Earth is 2/3 ocean, so most of them are going to fall into the ocean. So we will do some digging, and we will find some more lunar meteorites, but in the meantime, 780 kilograms. That's all we have here on Earth. So applying the £1,500 per gram, that comes in at £1.17 billion. In terms of the Queen, that is 3 queens worth. So what do you think I've used to display a group of 3?
Destiny's Child.
Destiny's Child is a fantastic shout. Anyone else for a group of 3?
Generic threesome.
Generic threesome? Well, considering this was meant to be a family-friendly show and I didn't want to kind of map the Queen's face onto it, it could have been an awkward photoshopping experience. So anything else for another group of 3?
The Bee Gees.
Yes, the Bee Gees. A fantastic shower. It is a Bee Gees worth of queens. You guessed it right. Have a moon.
Yay!
Amazing. Well done for guessing. Yes, it is a Bee Gees worth of queens. So we're going to end the show on talking about the lunar samples brought back by humans. Now, the price of memorabilia is supply and demand. The reason why Picasso paintings are so expensive is we have a limited amount, and he's dead, so he's not making any more. And everyone wants them because they're very good. So that's why the price for them is high. We have loads of NFTs, and no one wants them, so that's why the price for them has completely gone rock bottom. So that's supply and demand determines how much moon memorabilia is. This is how much moon rock we have here on Earth. This is, when I say moon rock, this moon rock that has been brought back by robots or humans, mostly from the Apollo missions, but some from the Soviet and the Chinese missions recently. 385 kilograms worth is about a grand piano's worth, or a horse, a small horse. Pick which one you prefer out of those two, but that's how much we have in terms of moon rock. Now, how much should we pay for this? There is a number, £5,800 per gram in 1973 dollars. Converting that up to $2022, it's £300,000, converting it into GDP, that is £225,000 per gram.
That number at the top is very specific. Is there a reason for who valued it? Was it
The US government valued it, and they had to value it in 1973 dollars because of the Great Floridian Moon Rock Caper, starring Thad Roberts. This guy stole some moon rocks, and because he stole some moon rocks, he stole government property, and that's a federal crime. So the government had to value the property that was stolen, which was moon rocks. So because these rocks came from the moon, they had to figure out how much did it cost to go and get this stuff per gram. So based on all of the fuel, based on all of the brain power, all of the research that went into it, in 1973 dollars, which is when the last lunar mission happened, they determined it was $50,800 in 1973 money. Now, the story of how Thad Roberts came about these moon rocks is wonderful. The Great Floridian Moon Rock Caper. Thad Roberts and his then-girlfriend Tiffany Fowler and an unnamed intern, I didn't know what he looked like, so I assumed he looked like this, they used their NASA IDs to break into the NASA headquarters. There they found a safe where they assumed it had the code for the safe on it, where they were going to open it and steal the moon rocks. But the safe actually had a prompt for the code. It didn't actually have the code on it, and that's really good password management. You don't put the password to the thing on the thing, you just put a prompt. However, it wasn't a very good safe, so they just picked it up and ran away with it. At this point, the unnamed intern split off, leaving Thad Roberts and his then-girlfriend, Tiffany Fowler, alone in a motel room with the moon rocks, where they proceeded to have fun on the moon. Now, they only had 101 grams worth of moon rocks, which is half a cup of sugar. And I don't know if you've ever had like a biscuit in bed or had like some crisps in bed, but then there's some crumbs and then you roll over at night and say, oh no, that's not very comfortable at all. And it's just, you just kind of like want to call up your mum and go, you were right, I shouldn't have eaten in bed, it's awful. So I can't imagine this was the most comfortable of experiences. Either way, the morning came and Thad Roberts realised, I have got a valuable substance here. I have 101 grams of moon rocks. Someone will buy this. So he went on the black market and sold his moon rocks under an alias of Orb Robinson. He found a buyer. This guy, Axel Emmerman, a Belgian mineralogist, and he said, yes, I will buy your moon rocks at $5,000 per gram. Now, Axel knew they were stolen. How else could this guy have gotten them? And he thought, this is probably a federal crime. I'm probably being tracked here. I know what I'll do. I'll get in contact with the FBI. So he got in contact with them, and the FBI said, thank you for this. You're exonerated, but we're going to include you in a sting operation for this. We will pose as your American cousins, and we will meet Thad Roberts and Tiffany Fowler at an Italian restaurant in Orlando, Florida on the 33rd anniversary of the moon landings. Why that date, place, or time, I have no idea. It just was a nice detail in the whole case. Then, at the last minute, they said, no, meet us in a nearby Sheraton hotel. And bam, they were arrested there and then. Thad Roberts was given 8 years in prison for stealing moon rocks. It was a combined sentence as well, because he stole some dinosaur bones from a museum in Utah. The court case didn't say if he had fun on or with those dinosaur bones. So take from that what you will. But while Thad was in prison for 8 years, he had a lot of time to think about what he did. So much so, he got a philosophy degree and now teaches philosophy outside of prison. So that, thanks to Thad Roberts, we have a value of £225,000 per gram of moon rocks. That's why it's that much. Are people going to pay for this? Yes, they are. This is a lunar sample, a bag which contained 15 grams of lunar dust, and it sold for $1.8 million. Now that's a bit less than the 300,000 I mentioned before, so you would make a nice tidy profit out of those 15 grams. However, one of the Soviet missions, I think it was Lunar 16, this only had 0.2 grams of lunar dust, and it sold for £710,000. That is a staggering amount of money, and it was just for 1/5 of a gram. So if we took all 1 horse worths of moon rocks that have been brought back by humanity, robots or humans, all 385 kilograms of it, applied the £225,000 per gram to it, we get £86 billion worth. Now, in terms of Queen, that is 235. Now, I don't think you're going to guess what I used as a unit of 235. Have a guess, though. What do you think I've used for this? Uranium. Uranium is a great number. A uranium's worth of queens. Like all the little atoms going around. That would be a good one. Now, I had a hunch that this particular group was about 200, and I was correct. So if you staffed the entire Metallica road crew with queens, 235 queens for the Metallica road crew, that would be £86 billion worth. So that's how much the lunar samples are worth, 86 billions. The free stuff that falls out of the sky is worth a fraction of that, just because it fell from the sky and it's got nothing special about it because humans haven't gone to get it. So in total, we're looking at £87.2 billion. But how much is the moon worth, Andy? This is a tiny, tiny little bit, right? Well, we want to know how much the whole moon is worth. Well, the moon weighs 73.5 sextillion metric tons. So that's a million, billion, trillion, quadrillion, quintillion, sextillion. And if we apply the £1,500 per gram rule to this, we get this much money out of the moon, which comes all the way up to 110 nonillion pounds. But remember my cheese index before, and if the whole moon was made of cheese and we brought that back, it would completely crash the dairy economy. Well, if we converted the whole moon into gravel and then came back here to Earth to try and sell it off, I couldn't go to you, do you want to buy this for £20 when you have your own personal quarry's worth of moon in your back garden? So this value doesn't really apply here. And also, the moon would be gone. We wouldn't have the moon anymore, which is bad for many reasons. So we could be capitalists and go, oh my God, that's so much money. But if we did get rid of the moon, we've got a question sections at the end, but go for it.
How many square meters of ground would that be?
Square meters of ground. Square meters?
Good question. Hang on. How deep is a square metre? How...
A metre? No, that's a metre cubed, right? Are we just talking about like 1 pebble's worth, so like a centimetre? Do you want to get to work with that?
Yeah, that's it. How deep do you want the... an inch? You use imperial units as well, yeah. Just 2.5. Can we not have decimal? A metre?
Centimetre or 10 centimetres?
Right, remind us how much a sextillion is. How many zeros?
1,000,000. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
7 blocks of 3.
7 blocks of 3. While he's figuring out that, if we convert the whole moon into gravel, that would be bad because there'd be no more tides, which would be bad because that would completely destroy the ocean ecosystem. And not only that, without tides, we'd have no decent weather patterns because the atmosphere is regulated by the tides. Yes?
I need to know the density.
The density of the moon or the rock?
Otherwise, I can't convert from tons to volume.
It is about 3.5. I'll just say 5 for ease. It's 3.5. Say 5. Anyway,
Cool.
Without an atmosphere, without only the atmosphere, our weather patterns would be completely screwed up because the tides regulate it perfectly. This would destroy the Gulf Stream, which would then trigger an ice age, which is not good because, you know, ice ages are bad. Also, nights would be significantly darker. The moon lights our night by 13%. If you get rid of the moon, you wouldn't be able to see your hand in front of your face at night. It's that powerful in terms of reflecting the sun's light. Also, the Earth's tilt would vary wildly. Jupiter would have an effect, but it would take millions of years for it to stabilize, and that would screw up the seasons even more, and we'd get a double ice age. So not only this, that's the kind of like practical side. In terms of the moon being nice, we'd have no more religious calendars. So when would Easter be? Don't know. We'd need some new gods as well. We'd need some new flags because the moon is on a load of flags. We'd get no more eclipses, which is a shame because eclipses are awesome. We'd have to repark all the moonlanders because they'd just be floating there. Werewolves would become extinct. We'd get no more moonlit walks or dinners, so romance would be dead. All the moon as a muse kind of things in books, in poems, in movies, all of that would be gone, and I'd have no more show. So a world without the moon would be awful. But we'd get 3 and a bit quadrillion pounds. That's how much the moon is worth. And I'm Andy Roberts. That's Rick. Thank you so much for coming to our show tonight. Thank you. Thank you so much for coming. If you want to know more about moon-related stuff, I do have my YouTube channel where I try to make a video about moons of the solar system. I've got about 30 of them so far, and since I started the channel, 50 were discovered, so I'm in negative 20 moons to try and cover. I also have Twitter stuff, so I'll keep retweeting loads of space-related stuff, and I'll also be able to post when I'm next on Radio 1 if there's anything space-related in the news. Because this is the Free Fringe, you don't have to pay for the show at all. However, if you really enjoyed yourself, we would really appreciate just a small donation, mostly to cover the admin fees, because we had to register the show twice, because it's under 2 different titles, so we had to pay twice the admin fee. But also, if you just had a great time and you really want other people to see it, please leave us a review. That's the best way to get people in the room. And yeah, thank you so much for coming along. I'll be at the back with the bucket, and I'll also be upstairs afterwards to answer some questions about the moon or anything moon related. So thank you for coming and have a wonderful night, and thank you to PBH Fringe. Woo! Do you have an answer?
I think it's, if you destroyed the moon, put it all on Earth, it would be 72 metres high. That might be wrong.
But that was a good guess. Thank you, Rick. Thank you, everyone.